Hello everybody, like promised, I'll be giving you my opinion on the prank call by the Russian hoaxers when they caught Harry with his foot in his mouth. Now, something that we have to understand right from the start is that regardless of how we may feel about Harry and Meghan, they still have a very dedicated following, and therefore this call is not as funny as we're all trying to make it out to be, because you do have those nuts and crazies out there who will take what he said seriously. So let's start with the first thing he had to say, or one of the things he had to say, and that was his criticism of Donald Trump, and in particular where he said that Donald Trump has blood on his hands. Now, he refers to his work climate change and Donald Trump's support of the coal mining industry when he says this. But is that what he really means? Or is he actually referring to other things between the lines? We all know that Harry and Meghan have been very supportive of a Muslim community in England, and we also know that Donald Trump had been responsible for the killing of a couple of these ISIS leaders. Never mind, let's take Harry up on what he actually said and take that literally and not try to read anything into it. My opinion is Harry at 35, who has never had a proper job, who has not lived like the rest of us, who's lived a very protective life, Harry with little to no education. How dare he speak about Mr. Trump like that? What does he know about America's internal and external policies, in particular their policy with regards to terrorism? I don't think he knows much about the UK's policies with regards to terrorism. So how dare he speak out about Mr. Trump? Then we also need to take into consideration the relationship between Britain and the United States, and the fact that the Queen has had various meetings with Mr. Trump, and that the Queen's relationship with Mr. Trump is very amicable. So once again, is Harry actually criticizing the monarchy? And then, of course, how dare he? Who does he think he is? So I really am very upset about what he said about Mr. Trump, although it doesn't mean that I am Mr. Trump's #1 fan. I do respect Mr. Trump, and I do appreciate a lot of the things he's done during his presidency. But I honestly feel that Harry had no place, and he still has no place to have much of an opinion on Mr. Trump, and definitely no place to criticize him openly. And that's that. Then we move on to other things he had said. Oops, quickly before I move on, the fact that he said Greta, a 17-year-old high school dropout, will outsmart Mr. Trump, who not only is the current president of the United States, but also a self-made millionaire, billionaire. I'm not sure how much money Mr. Trump has, but I know it's lots. So Harry is of the opinion that a 17-year-old high school dropout with various mental issues will outsmart Mr. Trump. Clear indication that Harry indeed has a couple of mental issues, and that his mother may have been right, that he is rather dim. Okay, so now we'll move on to the next thing he had to say in those prank calls. The next thing that concerned me about what Harry said during this prank call is people need to be woken up, and the only way to wake people up from what effectively is a consciousness crisis is, I think, you need to be doing extreme things. Now, firstly, what does he mean by extreme things? And then he says, what you need to do is to make real big changes that actually shock people. And it's that shock factor that wakes people up. Now, what is Harry actually calling for here? Is he calling for violence? Or is he advocating for children to drop out of school like Greta? Or stay away from schools? If not, then what did he mean by extreme things? And I think Harry should clarify this, because as I will show later in the video or in the next picture, is that Greta and her parents are actually supporters of Antifa. And Antifa, in my opinion, is nothing less than low-grade terrorists. So is this what Harry has become? Is this what Harry is now all about? And knowing that Harry and Meghan still have some rather nasty supporters, is this what he wants to see happen? Greta and their supporters doing some nasty extreme things? Well, if that is what he's advocating, I would advise Mr. Trump not to allow Harry a visa to the United States, because knowingly giving someone a visa who speaks out against your country's president and who is advocating for violence is not a clever thing to do, and I think Mr. Trump is more clever than that. Now, I'm not going to go into the shade Harry threw on the royal family or his brother and Catherine during these conversations, as I feel that that is something they can sort out among themselves. Nor am I going to discuss much about or anything about what he said about Boris Johnson, because compared to what he said about Donald Trump, what he said about Boris Johnson is nothing serious. However, I am considering what to think of the situation, and I want to bring this back to Prince Charles. During my lifetime, and I am 2 years younger than Diana would have been, my respect and admiration for Prince Charles would rise and fall. During his marriage to Princess Diana, and particularly during their divorce, and finding out that he had an affair with Camilla while married to Diana, obviously I was like the rest of Diana fans, and I hated his guts. However, as things came out and we found out that Diana also had a few affairs during her marriage to Charles, things started looking slightly differently. However, Diana was only 19 when Charles started dating her, and by then he was already in love with Camilla. So to my mind, Charles only used Diana, etc., etc., and therefore I didn't have much of a liking for him at the time. Then again, once he got married to Camilla and they settled into their royal life, and Camilla came out as somebody who kept her pose and who didn't complain, didn't fight back, but kept going with her head held high, my respect and, let's call it, admiration, although not really admiration, for the both of them grew once again. Then I saw the documentary on the Duchy of Cornwall, and I thought old Charles is not a bad soul. However, I have since also listened to some of his speeches on the woke climate change rhetoric, and again, it just boggles the mind. And then, isn't he supposed not to get involved with politics? And then obviously there was the meeting between Charles and Greta Thunberg. How utterly ridiculous. Smiling, nearly bowing down to this little 17-year-old high school dropout who did not respect him enough to even come dressed properly. She walked into that place looking like a boxer going for her 10th round, with her water bottle and sweatshirt, and looking at her face when she was introduced to Charles, when she shook hands at him. She had her nose pulled up between her eyes, like she was smelling something bad. Yet he kept smiling, kept talking to her. It's disgusting. If a child treated me like that, I would slap her down, maybe not physically, but I would turn my back on her and tell her to go get some manners before she comes back to speak to me. And that's just me. Charles, being supposedly the next king, where is his self-respect? And why do their advisors not do their homework and look into Greta and her family's background? Do they for 1 minute think it's cool to have some low-grade terrorists, be they eco-terrorists or Antifa, political terrorists? Does it really matter? It's utterly disgusting. Stop bowing down to this little, I nearly said a swear word, but this is just a money-making racket by her parents who are actually abusing their child. A child with severe mental and intellectual problems that's being used to generate money. That is it. Now, the next time Charles bows a knee to this little piece of shit, that will be it for me. Anyway, what I actually meant to say is that it is becoming more clear to me that although we can, I guess, blame Meghan for a lot of Harry's latest behavior and for leaving Britain, etc., etc., I'm sure she had a good hand in all of it. I'm starting to think whether the madness of Harry is not perhaps an inherited trait from his father, Prince Charles. And the more I look at this from different angles, the more I'm convinced that that is exactly what it is. Now, on to something completely different. There was a fluff piece about Harry and Chelsy Davy meeting up in London while he was here for the final hurrah. Now, whether this is true or not, nobody knows. There were a few photographs, but nobody as yet could have proven that it was either new or old. Now, I had a look at an article that appeared in Tatler magazine on Chelsy Davy, And I must say, it was a lovely article, and the photographs of her in that article is absolutely stunning. She has obviously matured into a beautiful young lady with excellent taste in clothing and style, and yeah, what a pity. Anyway, so something which has come up, and I read this in the comments on other YouTubers' videos. It appears that there's a bit of confusion about Chelsea's relationships, etc. Now, at the time of Harry and Meghan's wedding, Chelsea was dating James Marshall, a 42-year-old man. And after they were photographed in London, where Chelsea and James were at a restaurant, and she was wearing a ring on her left hand and obviously admiring the ring and laughing, it was said that she was engaged to James. Now, whether that was true or not, I'm not sure, but the photographs do show her admiring a ring and wearing it on her left hand. What is noteworthy, though, is that at some point after these photographs were taken towards the end of May 2018, Chelsea and James must have broken up, because in Tatler magazine she says that she is now in a new relationship, that it's new and she doesn't really want to talk about it, but that she is quite taken with whomever she is in a relationship with. Okay, so why did James and Chelsea break up after Harry and Meghan's wedding? That's a question, I guess, that will remain unanswered. Never mind. I quickly want to speak about Chelsea, in the sense that during her relationship with Harry, she had a very amicable relationship with Catherine. They may not have been the best of mates or friends or extremely close, but they got along. I've seen numerous photographs of them together, and there was just no sign of any strain between them. Then it's also noteworthy that Chelsea was friends with both Eugenie and Beatrice, and still to this day remains close friends with Eugenie. Chelsea apparently has also befriended Catherine's sister Pippa. Whether that's an ongoing relationship or friendship, I'm not sure, but at some point they were friendly. So that already indicates a huge difference between Chelsea and Meghan, because it's obvious that right from the beginning, instead of becoming close or having some kind of amicable friendship or whatever one would call it with Catherine, there was immediately competition and jealousy and bitchiness between the two of them. I'm not saying I'm blaming it all on Meghan, but I do find it strange that Catherine appears to get along with everybody and Meghan appears to get along with nobody. So if I was asked directly, I would place more blame on Meghan than I would on Catherine. It also appears that there's not much of a liking between Beatrice, Eugenie and Meghan. On the contrary, I've heard rumours that Meghan does not like them and they do not like Meghan. So, you know, when one enters into a marriage, it is said that it's a package deal, and although one doesn't marry the parents of the groom or his family. It does help if you have a good relationship with his family and vice versa. It has been proven that where there are good relationships between the couples and their in-laws, that the marriage has a better chance of succeeding. So I guess that is just another indication that this marriage will not make it. However, I do guess that we will have to wait and see, but I'm now joining the ranks of people who are saying that a divorce will happen sooner rather than later. Now, this is it from me on Harry and Meghan for the week. The coronavirus has finally stuck out its ugly head here in South Africa as well. Our schools are closing down later this week, and there are a couple of travel bans in place. Now, I'm not someone who believes in panicking about something you can do nothing about, but instead just to be prepared and take it as it comes. However, I thought I will let you know that South Africa has now joined the ranks of all the other countries as far as the coronavirus is concerned. And the only thing that really concerns me about this is that if it does grow and increase in intensity here in South Africa, that it is an absolute fact that our hospitals and medical systems will not be able to deal with it as well as those in Europe and the United States. And that's the only thing that concerns me about it. I'm virtually a hermit in my house anyway, so self-isolation will come easily as far as I'm concerned, and not going to make much of a difference to me. Anyway, so that is it. Hopefully I will speak to you all again later this week. Bye!
Please like, subscribe, and click that little bell. Please drop